What's going on, guys? It's Steve. Now, I'll sit here and I'll say this. There are only 3 players in NBA history that played in a different era but would still be able to dominate today's modern day. And I'm talking about big superstar players. I'm not talking about role players like a Steve Kerr or anything like that, because obviously if we're talking about role players, there'll be a whole bunch of them because a lot of them are shooters and defenders. So I'm talking about big name players. There are only 3 big name players that have played a long time ago that would still be able to dominate in today's modern day era. So first, before I even mention their names, what does a modern NBA superstar need? A modern NBA superstar needs to be a great scorer, needs to be a great leader, needs to be able to take over at will on both ends of the court, play make, whatever the hell you need to do. A great player is someone that all your other teammates look up to and expect for you to show up in big time. A great player in today's game can shoot the basketball. In most cases. I know Giannis Antetokounmpo can't really shoot, but he's a really good player. There's other cases as well. But you have to have a decent jump shot. It doesn't have to be only threes, like a mid-range. You have to have a solid jump shot. Which is why there are only 3 players that I've thought of that were real NBA superstars, that were dominant back in their day, but also dominant in today's, would also dominate in today's game. So the first player is Magic Johnson. Now, the reason why I say Magic Johnson would be able to dominate in today's game, because he is literally a Giannis Antetokounmpo before Giannis was even born. He is LeBron, Chris Paul, Giannis. He's pretty much every player in the league combined. I'll give you he wasn't the best shooter, okay? He had a mid-range jump shot. He had the post game. He had the playmaking ability. He had the IQ. Now, defense was lacking a little bit because of athleticism was lacking a little bit, which kind of hurts him a bit. But, which is why I have him first on this list, because I don't think, third. I don't think he would be the best out of these 3 during the modern day era. Some people are going to say, Steve, obviously, if you have this other guy in the list, whatever. You guys ready? That's a hint pretty much on who else I'm going to name in a second, but that's besides the point. Magic Johnson has the playmaking ability. The handle needs to improve a bit because obviously handles have developed. But with his handle, he can get away with it because you still can't take the ball from him. His handles were not elite in the sense of what we have now with, crossovers between the legs, behind the backs, and stuff like that. It was just dominant, strong, and hesitation. He had like the basic stuff, which is what 80s, 70s players had. And actually not 70s. 80s and early 90s players had, which is not a problem because you still wouldn't be able to take the ball from him. But on top of that, this guy was 6'9" tall. Okay, so you look at all the 6'9" point guards we have now: Giannis Antetokounmpo and LeBron James. Giannis is 7 foot and LeBron is like 6'8", 6'9". So you see how dominant they are now. Okay, Magic Johnson would definitely still dominate. Now, the next player. People are going to be surprised why he's second on this list. Don't get mad. This doesn't mean he's not the best player on this list, because he clearly is the best player on this list. I just don't think he would adapt as well as the first player that I'm going to say on this list. But number 2 is none other than Michael Jeffrey Jordan. Now, this is fairly obvious. What did I say you need? Defense, offense. Okay, sounds obvious, but I mean, let's be real. Michael Jordan is the best defensive shooting guard in NBA history. This guy has the most steals and blocks for a shooting guard ever. Michael Jordan did not have a great 3-point shot. However, this man had a great mid-range jump shot. Who does that remind you of? DeMar DeRozan. Now, I'm not comparing them in terms of, DeMar DeRozan's on the same level as Michael Jordan. Let's be real, he's not. But Michael Jordan had that mid-range jump shot. He had that post game, which a lot of players are utilizing now because the floor is so spread, which means defense doesn't collapse as much on the post player that has their back to the basket. Or if you're talking about a Kobe or a Melo that likes to face up, they're not going to collapse towards their back while they're facing the basket. But Michael Jordan had that. He had the athleticism, he had the skill, he had the heart, the dominance, and let's be real, he's one of, obviously all of these players are some of the best ever, but he's considered the greatest player in NBA history. Let's be real about that. He's considered the greatest player ever. Now, that doesn't mean I agree, but that's not the point of this video. The point is that it's obvious that Michael Jordan would be on this list. I really don't even have to go in depth on it. People talk about Michael Jordan so freaking much, but I mean, it's like beating a dead horse. He could dunk on anyone. He had the finesse. It looks like he's walking in air. I mean, literally, this man could do everything on the floor. Okay, and that is what makes a superstar in today's game. If you look at Stephen Curry, he can play make, he can score. If you look at Kevin Durant, he's playing defense now. He's passing, he's playmaking, he's scoring efficiently. Okay, and all those damn shots that Michael Jordan took, I think he took like 22 shots per game. He shot like 51% from the, no, not 51, 50% from the field for his career, which is damn good. Okay, so Michael Jordan is obviously going to be on this list. If you look at all these other superstars, LeBron James, he can do everything on the floor. Okay, James Harden, scoring and playmaking. Russell Westbrook, everything on the floor except defense. Okay, so you don't have to be able to do everything, and that's why LeBron and KD are so ahead of everyone else, because they do everything. But you can still be a superstar and only do, let's say, offense, and playmaking. Whereas Michael Jordan did everything. He playmade, he scored, and he played defense. So if Michael Jordan were in the league, he would be up there with LeBron and KD, obviously. I know people are going to say, Steve, well, obviously, we're talking about one of the greatest players ever. I mean, I have to say things like that when I make these videos, but that's besides the point. Now, the player that I think would adapt the best out of all of these players or any other superstar in NBA history in today's modern game is Larry Bird. Larry Bird is one of the most underrated players in NBA history because his career was shortened. I think it was only like 12 years because of that back injury while shoveling his yard or whatever, which is tragic, but things happen. He averaged 24, 10, and 7 for his career. 24 points per game, 10 rebounds, 7 assists. He scored, he rebounded, he playmade, okay? He was a leader, he was clutch, he can shoot the basketball. He had the athleticism, he had the defensive ability, and the capability of playing even better defense. And on top of that, this man was clutch. He can shoot. He could do every freaking thing on the floor better than Michael Jordan. Okay, in today's game, relative to today's game, which is why I think Larry Bird would adapt more. Because just because you do more, that doesn't mean you're a better player. Obviously, greatness determines, how many championships you won, how far you made it in the playoffs, how did you perform in the playoffs, how long did your career last, how consistent were you throughout your career. That is why Michael Jordan is ahead of Larry and Magic in that sense. But in this sense, I have Larry ahead of Michael and Magic because Larry could do everything. And again, an NBA superstar in today's game, you need to be able to do as many things on the floor as possible. And Larry Bird could do that. But he's the best shooter on this list. He's the best post player on this list. He was not the tallest, but he's a high IQ. So that's why I think Larry Bird would be the best player on this list in terms of which superstar would be able to dominate in today's game. I think Larry Bird would be able to dominate in today's modern day era. He would easily dominate because again, look at how the teams are playing now. Look at how the league is formulated now. It's all spread floor. It's all spread out. Everything's spread out. The big men are on the perimeter now. Who would have ever thought that 7-footers would be taking threes when back in the 80s, 70s, and 90s, 6'6" players weren't even taking threes. They were living in the post, driving to the basket. Hell, point guards would barely take threes. That is how much the game has changed. Now it's an outside-in league rather than an inside-out. Luckily for Larry Bird, he could play either way because he has the post, but he also has a shooting ability. He can catch and shoot. He can take you off the dribble. He can face up to the basket. He could put his back to the basket. Larry Bird is literally one of the greatest all-around players in NBA history, which is obvious. He's a top 10 player ever, but I just feel like he does not get the respect that he deserves in a lot of cases because let's be real, Larry Bird is a freaking beast. And it's really sad that the younger players nowadays forget about him. They're like, oh yeah, Larry Bird, he's one of the greatest ever, but they don't really know much about him, which sucks because it's like we're talking about someone that could do he was pretty much the LeBron James of his era, except he wasn't as point guardish as LeBron in terms of playmaking, but he was in a sense. It's really hard to explain. At the end of the day, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, and Magic Johnson, in that order, are the only superstars that I can think of that were able to dominate in their time and would be able to dominate in today's time. Hope you enjoyed.